Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Learn English with Photos. In the first part of this lesson, I'm going to be talking about a trip I made to Chicago in 2000. I'll then go over some of the vocabulary and finish by asking you some questions relating to the topic. In April 2000, I accompanied a group of French professionals on a one-week e-commerce training course at the University of Illinois at Chicago for what was my first and only trip to the United States. Ironically, the seminar took place just after the first dot-com bubble burst, and the future of e-commerce was looking decidedly shaky. The rest, however, is history, as they say. Let's begin with an overview of the city. Chicago is located in northeastern Illinois, on the southwestern shores of Lake Michigan. The town of Chicago was founded in 1833, and has grown to become the third most populous city in the United States, with approximately 2.7 million residents. The most popular name for Chicago is the Windy City, although Chicago is not significantly windier than any other US city. During the week I was there, the weather was warm and sunny, which meant that I was able to take a lot of photos. The thing which impressed me most was the height of the buildings. There seemed to be skyscrapers everywhere. I'm not very fond of heights, but I did pluck up enough courage to take a trip to the top of the Sears Tower, one of the most popular tourist destinations in Chicago. At the time of its completion in 1973, it was the tallest building in the world, surpassing the World Trade Center towers in New York, and it held this rank for nearly 25 years. It's still the tallest building in the United States, and the seventh tallest freestanding structure in the world. Over 1 million people visit its observation deck each year, and as you would expect, the views are truly spectacular. Not all the buildings are skyscrapers though, and I came across some very attractive brownstone houses, and these with wooden exteriors. Unlike its bigger rival New York, Chicago doesn't have a subway, but it does have the famous L. The L, short for elevated, is the rapid transit system serving the city of Chicago and some of its surrounding suburbs. The oldest sections of the L started operations in 1892, making it the second oldest system in the Americas after Boston. Although the L gained its nickname because large parts of the network are elevated, some portions are also in subway tunnels. On average, nearly 800,000 people use the L each weekday, and annual ridership for 2011 was 221.6 million. Of course, other modes of transport are available. There's the bus, for example, or a horse and cart. But if you want something a bit more luxurious, this stretch limo would be hard to beat. Chicago has a long history of crime. The famous gangster Al Capone operated here in the 1920s. But these cops seem quite relaxed. Although our group spent most of the week in the classroom learning about the finer points of e-commerce, we did have some time to see some of Chicago's many sights. The Navy Pier Park, which extends into Lake Michigan, is Chicago's #1 attraction, with over 8 million visitors a year. Its most eye-catching feature is the 148-foot-high ferris wheel. Here's the Chicago River, which gets dyed green on St. Patrick's Day. The Chicago Water Tower is the second oldest water tower in the United States. It's located on North Michigan Avenue, along the Magnificent Mile shopping district. The tower was constructed to house a large water pump, intended to draw water from Lake Michigan, but it now serves as a Chicago Office of Tourism art gallery. And talking of art, no trip to Chicago would be complete without a visit to the Art Institute of Chicago, where you can find some of the world's most famous Impressionist and Post-Impressionist paintings. Two of my favourites are Grant Wood's American Gothic and Edward Hopper's Nighthawks. At the weekend, I hired a bike and cycled along the shore of Lake Michigan. There were plenty of people jogging or walking their dogs, or doing both at the same time. I'm sure there were lots more things I could have done, and a week is not really enough, but I was just happy to soak up the American atmosphere. At the end of the seminar there was a drinks party, and we all got awarded a certificate. All in all, it was a memorable week, and I'd love to go back to the States one day. But enough dreaming, we've still got work to do. I'm now going to go over some of the vocabulary. I'll say each word twice, and you can repeat it after me if you like. I'll also give a definition and make a few comments where appropriate. The first word is brownstone. Brownstone. In the United States, a brownstone is a type of house which was built during the 19th century. Brownstones have a front that is made from reddish-brown stone. Bubble. Bubble. A bubble is a situation in which large numbers of people want to buy shares in a company that is new or not yet financially successful, and they pay more than the shares are worth. When it becomes clear that the shares are worth less than people pay for them, you can say that the bubble has burst. Cop. Cop. Cop is an informal word for policeman or policewoman. It's short for copper, which is also a slang word for policeman or policewoman. Cycle. Cycle. If you cycle, you ride a bicycle. For example, you could ask someone, "Do you cycle to work?" .com. .com. A .com is a company that sells goods and services on the internet, especially one whose address ends in .com. For example, Amazon.com. E-commerce. E-commerce. E-commerce refers to the buying, selling and ordering of goods and services using the internet. The E stands for electronic, by the way. Ferris wheel. Ferris wheel. A Ferris wheel is a very large upright wheel with carriages around the edge of it, which people can ride in. Ferris wheels are often found at theme parks or fun fairs. The expression is mostly used in America. In Britain, we say a big wheel. And of course there's a famous one in London, which is known as the London Eye. Foot. Foot. A foot is a unit for measuring length, height or depth, and is equivalent to 12 inches or 30.48 centimeters. When you're giving measurements, the form foot is often used as the plural instead of the plural form feet, as in the picture. Gangster. Gangster. A gangster is a member of an organized group of violent criminals. Al Capone was a famous gangster from the 1920s. Hire. Hire. If you hire something, you pay money to the owner so that you can use it for a period of time. For example, you can hire a car, a bike, tools, or just about anything. Impressionist. Impressionist. An Impressionist painting is one painted in the style of Impressionism, a style of painting developed in France between 1817 and 1900. Impressionist painters concentrated on showing the effect of light on things rather than on clear and exact detail. Famous Impressionists include Monet and Cézanne. Jog. Jog. If you jog, you run fairly slowly, often as a form of exercise. For example, I like to go jogging at the weekend. It keeps me fit. Painting. Painting. A painting is a picture which someone has painted. You often find paintings in museums or art galleries. This one has a frame around it. Shore. Shore. The shore of a sea, lake or wide river is the land along the edge of it. In the picture you can see the shore of Lake Michigan. Skyscraper. Skyscraper. A skyscraper is a very tall building in a city. New York has a lot of skyscrapers, as does Chicago. Stretch limo. Stretch limo. A stretch limo is a very long and luxurious car in which a rich, famous or important person is driven around. The word limo is short for limousine, and stretch means to make something longer. Suburbs. Suburbs. The suburbs are an area where people live that is outside of the city centre, or downtown, as they say in America. Subway. Subway. In American English, a subway is an underground railway or railroad system in a city. The New York subway is probably the most famous subway in the world. In Britain, we use the word underground, the London Underground. Tower. Tower. A tower is a tall, narrow building or part of a building. There are lots of famous towers. Here we have a picture of the Eiffel Tower, and you probably know the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and of course the Tower of London. View. View. A view is what you can see from a particular place or position, especially when it's spectacular or particularly beautiful. You get a great view of Paris from the top of the Eiffel Tower. Windy. Windy. We say it's windy, or the weather is windy, when there's a lot of wind. Right, that's all for the vocabulary. I'm now going to ask you a series of questions. I suggest you stop the recording to give yourself time to answer. And don't just answer yes or no, try to give as much information as possible. Question 1. Have you ever been to the United States? Where did you go? What did you see and do? Question 2. Which part of America would you most like to visit, and why? Question 3. What else do you know about Chicago? Question 4. If you just had one day in Chicago, how would you spend it? Question 5. What are some stereotypes about Americans? In your experience, is there any truth in them? Question 6. Some non-Americans say that we're too influenced by American culture. What do you think? Question 7. What are some of the differences between American English and British English? And question 8. Would you like to study or work in America? Why or why not? Okay, that's the end of this lesson. I hope you found it useful, and I look forward to working with you again on another episode of Learn English with Photos.